Broadcasting worldwide from Washington, D.C. to anywhere you are at brightradio.org. Go mobile and download the app on Google Play and the App Store, and listen on social media with Facebook, playing cross-cultural Christian music all day, all the time. This is Bright Radio.
Girl talk, dating, parenting, spirituality. We're talking about all things pertaining to single women. And yes, married women, I got something for you too. No topic is off limits on the Linda D. Lowe Show. Hey, everybody out there joining me via Facebook. What's going on? Join me on brightradio.com, on brightradio.org. Those who are listening via the Bright Radio app, I want to thank you so much for joining me here on the Linda D. Lowe Show Girl Talk for another Thursday, for another great discussion. And I just want to say welcome to my guests who are going to talk it up with me today, and we're going to have another great show. What y'all think?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm ready. So let me introduce my guests here. We have Jill.
Hey, how you doing out there? Excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Latrice.
Hey, Facebook.
For round 2.
Yes, happy to be back.
And Saeva is on her way. So we'll just, when she comes in, she'll just hop right on in. Come on, girl. I see you out there. Tonight's topic is, come around to the other side.
Oh, I didn't know you literally saw her coming.
I didn't either.
So tonight's topic is waiting to marry. Are long-term domestic relationships the new marriage? In all of my research on marriage, I've noticed that 50%, a little bit over 50% of the population, come on, Saeva, come on. We're waiting on you. 50%, a little over 50% of the population is single. A little bit over 50. Did I say that? Okay. A little bit over 50%. So I'm going to say about 50, I think it's 50.1, 50.7, somewhere around that area. And according to studies back in the 60s or 70s, the majority of the population was married, opposed to now. However, although only 50, a little bit over 50% of the population is single, they're still finding that about 20-some percent, 30-some percent of that single population still enters into long-term relationships.
Wow.
Yeah.
So although marriage is on the decline in terms of signing that paper, legalization, relationships are not. People still yearn to have relationships, and they want that special person to spend that time with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, because, the truth be told, everybody has a need for acceptance. Everybody has a need for some level of intimacy. So it's not that people have found an alternative way to find love, but they're finding a different way just to engage and find that companionship. And a lot of times people don't want to be tied to the burden of a marriage. And I hate to say that because in a sense it's kind of lost some of its credibility because, people dispose of it so easily. Just reading something, it was saying Britney Spears hold the record to be married to somebody for 55 hours. I'm like, are you kidding me?
I was going to say the same thing. I think people yearn for companionship. And in that, like she said, it's just kind of distorted now as far as marriage because people are just they're defining what marriage looks like to them. Like we have open marriages where they can kind of not really be committed to just one
swingers.
person, the swingers. And so it's really like, okay, as far as the long-term relationship, still having the benefit of marriage, but not having that paper to say, okay, I'm actually totally committed to you and just you. So,
right.
Yeah.
And like you said, people want to define their relationship their own way. I was reading an article today on Huffington Post, and it talked about how this particular couple, they were in a long-term relationship and they had no desire to marry. They had no desire to sign the paper. And she was saying, but when we introduce ourselves to people, we're almost stuck because we can't say, well, this is my wife or this is my husband. It's like, and we don't want to be so, juvenile to say
boyfriend.
Boyfriend, girlfriend. So what do I say? And she was saying in the article, I don't want to say partner because that's, usually relegated to the gay community.
Right.
So what do I say? And I was thinking, maybe help me.
Right.
I don't
and
know.
Some people, I've been hearing that partner more. And it's interesting you mentioned this because at my investor, there's a young lady who was saying to me, actually just today, her story is that she was married before. Her husband just one day, they were in a grocery store or some store, retail store. He just left like forever, and because of that, she was really hurt and she felt abandoned. But years later now, oh my God, it's probably been a decade, she's in another long-term relationship. Actually, she moved from Ohio all the way to Maryland for this relationship. And it's just a long-term relationship. And she was sharing me today that she's like, I think I'm going to buy my own ring because I don't think this guy's going to marry me. And I'm good with that. But I want to have a ring. So I think I'm going to go buy one, because she was sharing with me she got a bonus. So I find it very interesting that people are finding different ways and not wanting to take that jump again because we all know that if they marry again, the chances of divorce is even higher.
Right.
So people are saying, why bother? Although I don't personally agree with that, some people are taking that stance because they're just so afraid to go down that road again. Imagine having that level of betrayal upon you where you've been married with somebody for 15 years, you have 2 kids, and then they just get angry and walk out on you. How can you extend that trust again?
But I think the emotional ties are still there if we have the legal ramifications or not. If I were married for 15 years and you just get up and leave, and then I enter into another relationship but don't marry per se, and another 15 years go by and you get up and leave, emotional attachment is still there. The emotional hurt is still going to be felt. So even in long-term relationships, whatever type of relationship, whatever your title is, whether if your husband, your wife, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you boo, you bae, whatever it is,
right.
When that emotional connection happens and it's torn apart, you're still heartbroken.
I think because you don't even allow yourself to deal with it because people don't really want to, like she said, deal with that betrayal, that abandonment, and may not even recognize what the root issue of it is. And I actually know someone who has been through that same situation, was married for years, had a child by the man. He left, and now she's dating in a long-term relationship again. And I guess they would say engaged. She has a ring, but they don't even have a desire to be married. And so for me, I never asked the question, but I'm in my mind,
Curious.
I'm like, Carrie, so what is this? You know, because they have no desire to be married. They live together and everything. And I think for her, she has told me she don't want to be married again. She don't want to have to go through the courts and all of that all over again and deal with the divorce attorneys and all that. She just don't want to do it again. And so for me, it's like, well, why even go through that engagement process? I guess just to kind of show to people, I guess to put a name on it that you're engaged. But
it sounds like she doesn't want to have to deal with the paperwork per se.
The paperwork, it's a lot.
And the answer to the question that I pose, I really think long-term relationships are the new marriage.
Yeah.
I really do. Because honestly, when we think of marriage as Christians, we think of the institution that God created at the beginning of time. And I'm more than positive that that institution has definitely gone from the church now to the state.
Yeah.
And that's why they say, by the powers invested in me, given to me basically by the state to marry you, because the state keeps the license. And so has the concept or has the idea of the marriage been given to the state? And is that what people was running away from?
I think so. I think people are running away from the responsibility of having a marriage. As I've stated before in previous meetings, people who are married have some type of legal ramification that goes along with that. And a lot of times people don't want to be tied up, especially if they've been together for a very long period of time, talking 10, 15 years. So they've already have their stuff set up a certain way and they don't want to tie it together. That could be one thing. Some people are just emotionally not ready or financially or not ready in some way, and they don't feel as though they will ever be ready. So the other person just waits around. You have a lot of that too. Mm-hmm. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to marry. Other people are saying, oh, I don't want to marry, but they really want to get married.
Yeah. Right.
And they're just staying there because they're hoping the guy will change miraculously or pop the question someday. But they're like, okay, well, I'll settle for this. So that's another thing too that I see.
And is there anything wrong with that? Because let's say that the commitment is there, the love is there. You know, we are in a monogamous relationship. We're not stepping out on each other.
I think it's wrong because, well, I don't want to say it's wrong, but I think it's better if you have the legal ramifications, because if there's something that happens or goes wrong, you have the courts to back you up. And especially if you stayed in that relationship for a specific amount of time, you're entitled to some benefits that you wouldn't be able to receive if you were not married or tied in that way.
And absolutely. I would say when we're talking about believers, as a believer, you have to subscribe not to your own opinion, not to what the world is doing, but you have to say, okay, what does the Word of God says about this, and make the decision based off of that. So regardless of what's happening with the divorce rate or all of that, really doesn't matter. You have to kind of align yourself with that. So if as a believer, that's really not an option. Although many people are, like you're saying, adopting that and saying, yes, that's okay, but it's definitely not within the will of God.
So you're saying that, because I see it as, just because I don't sign a paper, I don't think a legal document was the institution of marriage. I think it came with the commitment.
But I think the legal documentation for those who are married, it protects you. Yes.
Right,
in a sense, if something was to happen to the other spouse, you can't go to the courts and say, well, I've been with this person for years. Nope. In those states that aren't common law, you can't go to the courts and say, well, I've been with this person for years. Quote unquote, the insurance issues or some kind of, if something was to happen to the other, you have no entitlement to their properties, their rights, any kind of insurance or anything like that. And so, I mean, child support, you don't even have any kind of, you don't have that protection.
So check this out. I was reading another article which was very interesting. This one couple, they didn't want to, do the marriage, the legal document. Yeah. However, they drafted up a legal document when it came to the assets.
That is interesting.
Both of their parents were lawyers, and their parents looked at them like, you're not getting married? What? Huh?
Right.
But you're buying this together, your home together, and this car together? Well, we're going to sit down and draft up a legal document. Mm-hmm. And if you are split, then this is what you get and this is what you get.
As a contract.
Yeah, and sometimes people say that that's another thing with the relationships and marriages is kind of turning into more of a business deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, like you said, is it quote unquote wrong as far as not being married? I think so. Yeah. If like she said, if the other partner has a desire to be married, but then yet the significant other that they're with is taking their time to actually go in that next step of marriage, it can be detrimental to the relationship as a whole, because you have one person who has an expectation and then you have another person who is just taking their time with it, and so there can be disappointment, quote unquote. I mean, example, we got.
But I would say let's say both people want to be in that relationship. Mm-hmm. However, one person doesn't want the documentation of it. But let's say that they do enter into some sort of another type of contract, though.
Or covenant relationship.
Yeah.
I would still say, it depends on who we're talking to.
Yeah.
Right? If we're talking to a non-believer, do you, boo? If you're talking about somebody that really is a believer, we have to subscribe to what the word says. And it says that we have to listen to the law of the land. Yeah. So whatever the law of the land is of that day, we need to follow the proper protocol for that time.
There's a lot of laws on the books.
Listen, girl, I know. But that's just what it is, because part of our journey is, being obedient and submitting to authority, because all authority comes from God. So we just kind of have to work that out.
Because I know I was saying earlier, and you had mentioned, with common law, there are still states that practice common law. Of course, it's not that many.
Yeah.
And I did mention that Alabama had just abolished their common law last year.
Yeah.
But DC still recognizes common law marriages.
Maryland doesn't.
Right. Maryland or Virginia doesn't recognize common law marriage at all. So just to let y'all know, if you live in the state of Maryland, if you live in Virginia,
Get it together.
Might want that
Go to the next. Go in DC.
Go to the
Catch
courthouse.
you might want to go to
Maryland will accept it if you
coming from another
if you're
state
coming from
that's-
another
that
state,
recognizes,
yeah.
yes. And a lot of states do
Yeah.
recognize it. If you're coming from a state that does recognize common law and practice common law, then if you move to another state, yes. So I'm trying to remember where I was going to go with this. Brian's laughing at me. With this, it was I was doing a whole lot of reading today, right? And so with this other article that I read, they talked about how this woman and man, they were in a common law marriage and they were in a common law state. And they were in this relationship for 25 years. They lived together, everything, family portraits, the whole nine. His mom called her daughter-in-law, everything. They introduced each other as husband and wife. They had the rings. The only thing was that they did not have a legal document in the courthouse saying that we got married on this date. She found him kissing another woman. And so she said, I want out. And their case was in the court system for a whole year. She had to bring all the documentation to prove that they were in this common law marriage. Documentation where she got greeting cards from the mother calling her daughter-in-law, where she got messages from the sister calling her sister-in-law. And I mean, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
She had to prove her case, and she had this stuff.
and to still had to go to the courts.
Right, and still had, because they were going
Good
through
point.
a divorce. They
Right.
were going through a divorce. And divorce isn't, for me, I know, I see it as we usually give the term or relegate it towards marriage. But a divorce is just separate.
Separation.
Going parts,
People,
separation, right? So they were going through a divorce even though they had never been legally married.
Wow.
And so a lot of the reason a lot of states are doing away with it is because they said it's too much work to have to prove your case. And they said the reason that common law marriage even came into existence back during colonial times and stuff like that was because they couldn't find a minister readily. They were not available. And of course, we didn't have, the transportation was not what it is now. And so to go and marry somebody, it was too much time. And so they said, okay, we're going to allow you to have a common law marriage. And so you can live together and you have all these ramifications and even the legal and economical sides that come with, the benefits that come with a marriage. So that was the purpose of common law marriage. And I said, wow, it really had a purpose.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Right.
That's the fact.
Right. So back in the day, I can imagine that a lot of believers were common law, had common law marriage. Right.
And it was legitimate.
Yeah.
So I would say today, if you're thinking about it, go to a state. If you really don't want to do it, perhaps go to a state and meet those requirements. And I guess you can kind of go from there. But I would say just go ahead and take it to the altar.
Right. I would say that too. Or just the piece or something. So I was telling you all earlier that I have a friend that I went to college with. And she and her husband, they had a ceremony. They had a pastor officiate the wedding. But they did not sign legal documents.
Yes, I've heard of another situation like that too on a famous TV show.
Really?
Yeah.
So what
in DC.
What are y'all thoughts on that? Because the covenant is there, the blessing is there.
Yeah.
That was my first time ever seeing anything like that on
On
Love and
Love
Hip
and
Hop
Hip
with
Hop,
Yandy and the
yeah,
DCs.
DCs.
And she changed her last name. They got a written contract to show that her last name was changed. Never heard of that before, but I mean, I think at a later point they did wind up getting married. I'm not quite sure.
Or signing the legal documentation.
Signing the legal documentation, but
because I honestly see marriage as more than a legal document.
yeah, me too.
It's much more than that. Yeah, it entails that. But if you're not committed and you have that legal document, you ain't married. Your heart ain't. You said you're stuck. If your heart isn't in it, you're just wasting paper and wasting time.
You're stuck.
Yeah, and truth be told, every time anytime a relationship is consummated, that's considered
a
marriage.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, even I think about when the Bible, when the woman at the well was saying that she was never married,
Right.
but what Jesus was saying to her in that
You
moment
got
is
5
like,
husbands.
girl, you done been there,
Not
done
because
that.
you signed the legal documentation, because you were sleeping with these dudes.
Absolutely. So that's also another thing to consider. And a lot of times we don't even think about that. So,
Yeah.
and
that's
I was just say, get your bases covered. Don't, go ahead and get your legal documentation, then consummate your marriage, and you in the free and clear. But
yeah, and that's, you bring out a very great point, because I tell people all the time, hey, once that connection is made through sex, you're connected. How many people do you want to be connected to?
exactly.
And see, I think people don't even value that anymore, in a sense of valuing sex after you get married. There's no value in that anymore based on society. So now it's kind of like, well,
What's
people don't
there?
what's there. I've already been probably doing it with you before, so why not just go ahead and everything is just easy. They just making it easy nowadays.
Do you think that contributes to the fact why people are waiting longer to marry?
Yeah.
Because I think, to me, in the sense of, for a man, I don't, to me, if I'm a woman and I'm pretty much giving the man all the benefits, we live together, we have sex together, we do have children together, why I'm not encouraging that man to want to get married to me anytime faster. He's already getting the milk and the cow.
Okay.
It's no need for him to want to move on and get the marriage, because really I'm enabling him to be comfortable, to be lazy. And so that's why I would say, if the woman's expectation is to be married at some point, then you have to make that expectation set between both partners, in the sense of, my goal is to be married. My goal is to do X, Y, and Z. That has to already be established, because if we're now moving in together, we're now having sex together, if we do have children together, then that goal can kind of be distorted in the sense of what it actually looks like in the household, and for the children, if there are children involved.
I definitely agree with that. Setting up the boundaries in the beginning. I am against cohabitation before marriage. That, I definitely draw a line there, because what ends up happening is people get comfortable and they tie things together, and they may or may not get married. Who knows? That can happen that way. And then you end up in a relationship where one person might want to get married and the other person
Don't care.
see it.
And the crazy thing is that statistics show that people that live together before marriage are more likely to get divorced. Which some people
that's
like,
true
I
too.
want to try it out. You gotta,
No.
ride it before you, kind of take a ride before you buy. But it doesn't even. It actually declines. Who would think that?
Wow.
Yeah, but a lot of people are saying, well, I don't want to do it like my parents did. They didn't cohabitate, and they're getting divorced.
Right.
They'll look at it like that and say, well, or even say that my parents' marriage didn't work, so why even have that legal documentation?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of it besides the rights to each other's property?
I actually dated a guy like that. His parents never got married. They still aren't married to this day. And they've been together for years, have children, have grandchildren, and still not married. And so he told me pretty much, we had that discussion of what is his desire to get, do he even have a desire to get married? And he told me no.
He probably like, I don't believe in marriage.
He was like, for me, I see my parents doing it well. They grandparents and everything. They live together for years. They don't have problems. So in his eyes, he's like, that's what my example is. And so I had to know within myself to walk away, because I know what my desire is.
Right.
And so I think, for a woman out there or a man who's in a relationship like that and someone approaches you like that, you have to take the stand in the sense of, okay, am I going to settle? And am I going to try to ride this thing out in hopes that this person will change their mind for me? Or, because if they tell you what it is up front, you have to listen to what it is. That's face value. Listen to what it is. And and maybe you may change. I actually know the guy is now actually married. He's married to someone else. But I was surprised when he told me that. I knew I had to just,
Absolutely.
It's like, wow.
And I have to co-sign on that, because it's so important for all the singles that's listening out there that you do have to make a decision to take a stand and decide that you're not going to settle if that's truly what you desire. And it really is ironic how it relates to one of the reasons I know that marriage people are delaying it is because of the level of insecurity.
Yeah.
That women have and so much brokenness, and men are starting to recognize this. A lot of times you can see she's beautiful on the outside but broken in the inside, and what men have discovered over time is that those type of relationships lead to a lot of problems, lead to a lot of mistrust. So when you get to the place that you can say, I'm not going to just be in this relationship for the sake of having companionship, and I'm not going to settle for something that I know is less than what I really desire. When you have the level of confidence and you have the level of boldness, that's truly what attracts a man to you even more. Which makes him unattracted to you is when you screaming, clawing your way to the altar and dragging him by the hair or beard. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. You know what I'm saying? This is going to happen, and it doesn't work that way. So I do believe, and I want to just kind of, if we could say anything on that, like about this whole brokenness and women, dealing with such level of insecurities that kind of, I think, cause men to want to delay because they feel like she's not ready.
But it goes both ways.
I was to say it's definitely men.
We are broken people.
Yes.
Women just express it more than men do.
Yes.
But remember, studies have shown that men die faster than women because they hold their stuff in.
Yeah.
So, and I'm actually going to talk about that on my next week's show. Actually,
okay.
But yes, both parties are broken in their own way because we come from broken families, and men. I know there are men out there that want to get married as well, and they're ready and they're looking and they're just as ready as the women are. But I would say that is not just the brokenness is not just a woman's thing. It's a man's thing as well, because I would always say, well, if the woman is broken, who broke her? And only, as I always say, and as the saying goes, hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
So once that cycle continues, and so if you have the men hurting the women hurting the men, we hurting each other, it's a cyclical thing where it's just always going around.
And that's why I would say being in a long-term relationship isn't as bad. It just depends on how long. We're going to wait until marriage.
So how long?
In that part.
How long is long?
For me, definitely I couldn't do no more than 5 years with being in a relationship. At the age that I'm in now, I'm 26. Okay, by 31, I would at least like to have a ring on my finger if we're in a relationship.
And that's after 5 years to have a ring?
Within that 5 years,
okay.
I would like to be at least engaged, of knowing you. We're not in the early 20s anymore. I would at least want to be engaged. We don't have to be married within that 5 year time frame, but at least, for me, but I guess it depends too on where we are in life. I can't predict that. That's just where I am now, but it depends on where we are in life financially, if we would even go to that next step. If we both are not at that place financially or in life, or at two different places, then no, I wouldn't rush the marriage. But I think that at least being in a relationship for a good amount of time, like I said, I don't think it's all the way bad, because it does allow both parties to get to learn each other longer. Like you said, if there is brokenness there, okay, we can allow that time to go through our pre-engagement counseling, our premarital counseling, and work on some things before we actually get married, because I wouldn't want me or my spouse to now get married and then we're bringing all of our baggage into the marriage.
Then what is marriage? Two perfect people coming together?
No, but definitely two whole people.
I respect that. I do have a slight different opinion on it when it comes to at what point or how long somebody should wait. Because even though I use the term dating, when I say that, I mean when you're at the point that you're ready and entertaining a relationship that's going to lead to marriage.
Yeah. And
a lot of times people just want to be in a relationship for the sake of being in a relationship, to have that companionship. Because I know I was there, being in a relationship monogamous, next, 1 month later, next, However, when you know better, you should truly do better. Mm-hmm. So you really shouldn't even entertain that relationship until you're ready. And if that's you as a woman saying, I know my goal is marriage, if you're broken or you're not ready, don't even get into the dating scene. And then when you start to date, I love the question you asked. You said that you asked him, the guy you were dating, hey, what's your values around marriage? Do you ever desire to get married? We're not even talking about marrying me. I'm just talking about marriage period.
General, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And weeding that out so you don't waste so much time.
Mm-hmm.
We waste so much time with with prospects that's not entertaining us for marriage, who, you know what I'm saying, don't have the same goals we have. You saying, you know, even waiting 5 years, that can be a long time. And another thing I'm just going to throw out there is when this whole delay of marriage is also causing a lot of issues when women then now at 31 trying now to have children, because we are delaying marriage. So that's another effect. I know so many women between the ages of 30 to 35 right now that are married happily and struggling to get pregnant, because we are delaying, because really, the truth be told, at the age of 35, it significantly decreases your chances. And not to say you're running to the altar out of fear,
right?
But I do believe there's also things for us just to be conscientious and to be aware and be educated. What can we do to preserve ourselves? And also making sure we're not wasting a whole lot of time with bozos who's not really serious about the relationship.
True. So for you, how long is long?
For me, it would be no more than 2 years.
Okay. So Sayaba, how long is long for you?
Well, I have a different approach because I have to really know the person. I mean, in depth, understand their psychological, what they're bringing into the thing. And that takes at least 3 years of kind of breaking the ice.
Yeah.
Because, 3 years about breaking the ice, and then, you know, maybe 5 years until I decide that's actually somebody I want. Now, I am going to be 32. So, you know, when you say that, like talking about, you know, children and stuff like that, and I do want children, you know, that is very scary to me. But the truth is, I'd rather be in a marriage that is very happy with other options of having children. So, like, I could do an adoption, I could do IVF, I could do whatever I need to do if I want to do that, than to be rushed into something after 2 years and find out on the third year that this person is totally something that I did not know or think.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, not to scare anybody, say you need to run to the altar because your biological clock is ticking. Absolutely not. One whole thing is about you making the right choice. However, there are things you can do now to educate yourself to make sure that you're protecting your body, and what are you putting in and on your body that can help preserve your eggs, pretty much.
Listen, my eggs are scrambled. They are powdered. Listen, my clock has ticked because I'm like, I don't know. You know, I have one child and I'm good with that one child because Aruba is sitting over there waiting for me to come. So I'm like, you know, that's not even my concern about having kids, honestly.
But that used to be my scare in the sense of, okay, God, I'm 26. I mean, when is he going to come? But I mean, and I've dated plenty of guys, and like I was telling her before, I mean, now God has definitely shown me it's not the time for you to even be dating. I need you to be focused. I need you to be about my vision, about my purpose. And so for me, I don't know how long that's going to be. I know that I'm not where I really want to be yet, but I know that there is things to be done. And so, like you said, working on those key things. So for me, okay, that's working on myself, working on my health, working on my vision, what God has for me. And like my mom was telling me, she was like, you know, Trees, if I could do it all over again, I would wait till my 30s to be married and probably have children. And so, I mean, now society is changing, you know, and I think it's where back in the day, like they say, 30 is the new 20. It kind of really is, because I mean, back in the day, our parents were having children a lot younger, getting married a lot younger. But now society is changing. A lot of people are taking that time, and not even just because of long-term relationships, but just because of life.
And they say that another reason why the marriage is delayed is because a lot more women are going to college than what they were before.
I didn't graduate from college till 24.
Right. And so a lot more women are investing in their education. So that's what their focus is. Yeah. So my focus isn't necessarily on finding the man to take care of me. My focus is going to school so that I can take care of myself. So that's one of the biggest, another big reasons why marriage is also being delayed. And I agree with you when you were saying that if you're not ready to really be in a relationship and move towards marriage, why date? And I tell people that all the time. And that was me. I was like, I'm not ready for marriage, so I'm not interested in dating. Right. I'm not even going to waste your time to even, you know, play around with my emotions, your emotions. I don't have time for that. This is what I'm doing. These are my goals. This is my path. This is what I want to reach. So I'm not even, you know, looking to entertain that. So when I do look to entertain that, then I will get out there and look. So I think it's important that people understand that, hey, if you're not trying to move, if you want to be married, but you're not trying to move to marriage just yet because you know that there is some stuff that you want to work on you, meaning that you want to get your finances up, meaning that you want to get your education, meaning that you want to do so many different things, then don't even get into a relationship.
That is so important. I'm glad you say that, because the truth of the matter, the law of attraction holds true.
Yeah.
And what I often tell people is, if it's like being our lives and our dating journey, if you want to say that, is like being like an elevator. You know, an elevator may go from the first level to the level 20, and your guy may have designed it for you to get off on level 20 because that's where he has that mate, that $1 million mate, that God-fearing man or woman, you know, for you. But sometimes if you go in prematurely and you get on that elevator and you decide on the 12th level, you're like, man, I ain't got time to wait till I get to the 20th floor. I need to go ahead and handle this, whatever the reason is. And you get off on the 12th floor, you're going to also meet people on that same level.
Right.
So a lot of times you may be marrying down or marrying somebody that's not on the level where you're going to go, because you have to remember, when you're talking about marriage, it's a destiny partner. So you have to make sure that you have like mind and that you have the same values and a shared vision.
Right.
And the man is leading that vision, and
Right.
you have to, as women, we have to submit and follow into that vision.
And y'all have a mission.
Absolutely. That you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And if you don't do that, like you said, if, okay, God has me at a level 20, that's where my Boaz is, but I get off at level 12, I'm delaying my process.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that I have tried so many times to be, you know, just to give men chances who had potential. But I delayed myself along the process of my own growth because I kept trying, I kept testing the waters or whatever. But then in that, got broken so many times. And so then I got to go back to God all over again. God, restore me, heal me. But, you know, and it's just like, God's like, I don't even want you to have to keep going through that mess.
Right. And I think it's important, and this is something that I think we've lost sight of how to really, truly, honestly build platonic friendships.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every guy that flirts with you, every girl that flirts with you does not mean that you have to date them.
Nope, you just be friends.
Exactly. You just be friends. You be
and
friends.
get to know them.
Exactly.
And see if, you know,
And then-
sometimes you might end up being with them.
Right. And so many people jump into the attraction thing. Oh, we look good together, or I'm attracted to them, or, you know, for what? Because that is where we get the heartbreak coming in, because we get so attached to this person. How about just having a genuine friendship?
And I think in friendship, when you're now going over to that dating and courting place, then it won't even have to take that long. It won't even take 5 years, because now we've already been friends. I
5
trust you.
years.
Right.
I know that you have my best interest at heart,
Right.
and I have yours.
And when you go into as a friend, you're not wearing a mask.
Right.
You're not trying
you
to
know them. They
Right.
know you.
Yeah.
And you know what you're getting into and dealing with.
Yeah.
So,
And you don't have to wear this mask. You don't have to try to deceive them. You don't have to try to trick them. You know, you are who you are.
Yeah.
That's so important. And I believe that's really one of the best things I did for my own marriage. And then we didn't necessarily work platonic for a long time, but I really just released the expectations of the relationship. Because sometimes we have so many expectations. We done, know the guy for 2 weeks and we already married him in our heads.
Right,
and,
right.
and even maybe I don't think guys are so much like that. But as women, we tend to
Nah,
do
they be
that.
like, oh, I think she can have my baby.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Some do.
exactly how they think.
And sometimes they weed you out to see if you are about what you say you are
Yeah.
about. Let's just be frank. So, I did that, and it really just freed me, and it frees the other person.
Right.
That they don't feel obligated like this has to go somewhere. And it's less stressful, and you can just be
Yes.
fully present
Yeah.
and enjoy the dating process.
Yes.
I mean, I tell you, when my husband had asked me to be his girlfriend, mind you, it was only 2 months, but that's still, in terms of the mental space that I was in, was totally different than prior relationships. I didn't went there thinking, oh, this guy's going to be my boyfriend, my husband, and all of that. We're just friends. We were in Walmart one day. I was grabbing some shoes because I sprained my ankle, and he was like, how long you have to date before you go out? And I'm like, I don't know. And I still didn't even pay attention to, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know it's a time, but I still didn't buy into that or pay any attention to that. Later on that night, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I was shocked, and that's not obviously marriage, but that was still
As another step.
That's
right,
another
as another
step in
step.
the
And it was
direction.
so, like I said, it was just a freeing experience, that it was so stress free for both of us, that he
Yes.
felt like, okay, she's not even tripping. I love that.
That's good.
I really loved what you said when you said, if you only date or entertain that aspect if you're truly ready.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know for me, there's been times where I wanted to be ready. Tried to rationalize being ready. Tried to make it right in my head about being ready, but I wasn't ready. And it came to a point where I was engaged and he was ready somewhat, but I definitely wasn't ready. So that was terrible. And it's a terrible thing to go through something like that and just not be ready.
So he
That's
proposed.
Yeah, well, he asked for hand in marriage. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Has to be difficult.
And I think it's important also for us to understand what marriage is about, because so many people, I think, they have the idea that I need to be my own idea of perfect before I get married. But honestly, marriage is about connecting and growing together and being able to work through the issues that arise and being able to work through every issue that arises and being able to, even for yourself, transform and change. Because I always say, no matter if we're single or if we're married, we're always going to change. We're always evolving as people. And so when we do get married, we have, as a couple, we have to evolve together opposed to changing or evolving apart from one another. Because, you hear a lot of people say, well, we grew apart. Well, how did you grow apart?
Right, because you didn't have a common vision to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You didn't, or you didn't stay together, meaning that you started to allow certain things to draw a wedge between your relationship. And I think it's really important that we be intentional. Again, even just going back to the whole, if you're not ready to go into a relationship, then why even bother to date? So I think everything we do, we have to be intentional about it. And once we begin to be intentional about it, then we'll have better results.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree, because I think you may have some couples who are married and, like you said, the marriage can now start drawing a wedge if they're growing apart. And then, okay, we're married, but I still have a single mindset. And that's because in that time that God gave you to be single, you weren't really working on you. You weren't really dealing with you. And so now I'm married. Okay. Yeah, we have the legal documentation, but yet my eyes are still wandering. Or I might be in the home, but I'm just not present. I'm not attentive to my wife. I'm not attentive to my husband. And so, because marriage is work and it's something that you always have to do. And that's why I think the courting process is important. Like I said, the premarital counseling and all of those things, because we have to learn and grow together. But then also now when I'm married, there's, like you said, another whole evolution. You're never going to just be ready.
Right.
Nobody's just going to ever be ready, because that's like a parent, like a mom. She's about to have her baby. You could prepare all you want, but then when you now give birth to a child, it's a whole different process. And so you're never going to be, and you're growing while you're in it. And so if God is taking you to that next step, he's going to give you the grace for the next step. But in that, it's still some work to be done. And so I would just say, while in that dating and in that courting season, really learning each other, really taking that time to evaluate each other and knowing if it's now even time for us to, be married. I think sometimes as believers, I know believers who have rushed marriage and they're now divorced because they really I have, I know someone who, her and her ex-husband, they got married really just strictly, they're saved, but they got married because they were ready. They wanted to have sex, to be honest. And so just so that they won't fornicate and go against the will of God,
people do that.
They just kind of jumped into it, and now they're divorced. And so now, they have to deal with the brokenness and the hurt, because they wanted to work at their marriage while in their marriage, but not really working even before they got into the marriage. They kind of came in with the wrong intention.
Right. And so you got to make sure that you're at a place that you have a desire, but you're not at a place of desperation.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if you're at the place of desperation, thinking about it when you're hungry, right? If you go the whole day, listen, you go the whole day and you don't eat anything, like the quality of food you want to get is like whatever goes. And that's the same thing in terms of relationship. You can't get to the place where you're so desperate and so anxious to have that physical experience or whatever that is. And that goes back to the wholeness you talk about. And that leads me to what the next point I wanted to make was you also talked about work. Truth be told, marriage is work, but the amount of work that's going to be required is going to depend on how much work you put in before you got married. Okay. I was talking to my sister the other day, and I was just saying, I'm very fortunate to have a healthy, happy marriage right now, 5 years in November.
Amen.
And my sister was talking about it, and I was like, well, I think it's because me and my husband are so compatible, and she was like, Jill, it's about what you say all the time. It's about, did you do the work on you?
Before.
Right? And kind of positioning and preparing yourself to make sure that you're a whole person, you're ready, you're on on the 20th floor before you get off the elevator. So when you step out of there, you're not so fragile.
Yeah,
and she also observed that about me. She said, yeah, because a lot of things your husband do, it doesn't bother you. Because I'm not so fragile or hung up on his every move. And I know he's going to do things that I don't like. And I know the way he is, he's not going to change. But I kind of went in with that level of expectation and the level of wholeness to know that me and him wasn't going to be up under each other. Everybody's different.
Right.
But we're not like that. You know what I'm saying? He does his own thing. I do my own thing. We have a little Tuesday nights and we have a date night. And we go to church and we're good. So, everybody has a different dynamic of the relationship. And I would say it's so important to talk about what are those expectations in terms of the dynamic of the relationship, depending on your lifestyle and your personality.
And it's important that, and I talk about in my book, the fact that, if your desire is to be married, then you need to start preparing your mind for that. You need to start preparing yourself to be the best spouse that you can be. You need to educate yourself. You need to attend marriage seminars. You need to work on you. You need to recognize what are the issues that I need to develop in and own them. Because so many people, I always say, so many people are blind to who they are. And when you get into a marriage, it's very easy for us to see the other person issues.
Yeah.
Or any relationship, honestly, a friendship, whatever. It's easy for people to see our issues, but do we see our own issues? And do we own those issues? Because that comes with us being able to say, you know what, when I own my issues, when I work on those issues, then I can become a whole person and understanding that I do have things that I need to change about me before I take that next step. Or even when I do take that next step, then I know that when I have my issues and my man bring that out to me, I can say, you know what, you're right. Opposed to saying, you lying. That ain't me. So being to be so on the defensive end. So we have to take that in consideration in terms of fixing out, as I said in my first chapter in my book, fix yourself first.
And I think with going along with fixing yourself first, not taking things so personal when a person does bring out your flaws.
But, and that's maturity, though.
Yeah,
that's the person
I've
being
had
able
to
to
learn
recognize
that I can be a very defensive person, and that's something that God has shown me in my dating with different kind of men. That okay, Latrice, you don't respond, you react. And so, wow, God, I react. What does that look like? And so it can come off as argumentative, confrontational. And I didn't realize that until people that are close to me had to also show me those same things. And so God is now dealing with me about my mouth, about me being defensive and not taking things so personal. It's okay. The Bible says God loves those he corrects. And so correction is important as long as it's constructive. Don't let someone just, beat up on you and verbally abuse you. But as long as it's constructive, it's okay. And so I think that goes along with accountability. The Bible also says, you have to self-examine yourself. And that's a part of growth. We want to grow in so many different areas. We want to grow in business. We want to be successful, but we don't want to grow within ourselves in the sense of really dealing with yourself. Because like you said, it's so easy to point out someone else's flaws, but when the person point out your flaws and you just, you a hater,
off.
or what you don't know me, and so it's really like, okay, take a chill pill and just don't be, like you said, it's maturity. It's all about maturity and knowing that if a person really has your best interest at heart, they want you to grow.
Exactly. That's so important. And I would say if we're not even at that stage where we can accept people coming to us and telling us about ourselves, then we're not ready for a relationship. Because in a relationship, we cannot be selfish.
And we can't be overly petty. And
Right.
sometimes we can be petty. And I know I could, again,
Tit
one
for
hand is
tat.
up, two hands up. We get so petty about the dynamics of the relationship, what he did, what she did, and that really weighs on a relationship. And something, truth be told, my husband called me out about sometimes. He's like, babe, why are you internalizing? Kind of going back to what you're saying, somebody say something to you, or even when they don't say something or when they don't do something, you're automatically internalizing that it's about you. And that also just put extra weight and extra stress on the relationship. And nobody wants a relationship like that. You want a relationship where you can truly be your authentic self.
Right.
You can, show your vulnerabilities and not be judged, and also stretch your mind and the other person don't feel so easily offended.
Right. That's
good. Basically, I think a lot of people are waiting because they are not self-aware. And I think that not being self-aware and trying to put that into a relationship with someone else, doesn't work too well, especially something a serious marriage, because with marriage you're putting two people in as one. So if one person's not self-aware and the other person is, or they're both not self-aware, which is most likely the case, because if the other person's self-aware, they're like, okay, this person's something wrong with them,
Right.
and we're just gonna exit stage right. But if it's two people that are not self-aware, not mature, like you said, not doing the work on themselves, then it's just a catastrophe. And so you might see flaws in each other, but you're still bumping heads.
Right. Because you're trying to do things your way,
And
opposed to compromising.
Yeah. And I really think that is the majority reason why people really are waiting. They might not say that. They might say they're happy or they want to do that. But majority people, I really think that's what it is, what we talked about.
And I think also, too, knowing and understanding what the root of it is, as far as why people are really waiting and being in these long-term relationships and having no expectation. To me, I think the root is fear.
Yes.
And
That
with
too.
that of fear, okay, well, let's go back to where that root came from. Maybe in my childhood, I never saw a successful marriage. So now I'm afraid that if I get in one, or maybe I saw my parents get divorced, or maybe I saw that my parents never got married. You know, it's a fear in a sense of, can I make this work? Will this be successful? Or a fear of, can I still be myself?
Yes.
You know, it's a root as to why someone really doesn't want it. And that goes back to just a person really dealing with themselves, accountability, and being accountable as far as their own actions. And we just don't want to deal with that.
And so people just rather do it a different way. Because like you said, if we're growing, and this is why this particular generation, we see the statistics that we see, because the generation before us did it and it flopped. And as kids, we're like, nah, I don't want that. You know, so, and although we didn't think that necessarily as children, but when we grew up, we still remembered the pain that divorce caused as a child on the family. We still remember, you know, that our parents weren't happy. We still remember, you know, because we would say back in the day, our grandparents stayed married through cheating, through everything, through babies coming home.
They had
through
an extra fund in the account in the back somewhere. Look, somebody told me this before when I was thinking about getting married.
Right.
They had a
And so
little
our parents, because our parents saw their parents stay in unhappy relationships, they said, oh, nah, I'm going to divorce as soon as something happens. And that's what happened. And guess what? Then the next generation say, I ain't even gonna get married there. For what?
Right.
Or they get married and there's no trust. There's no trust in the relationship. We got prenups. I feel like prenups is premeditated. You already premeditated divorce. I mean, there's no trust there. I mean, now everybody's relationship is different, but I think we go off what we see celebrities doing. You know, they just reality TV is just divorces left and right, and so it's just kind of like, oh, well, that works for them. I'm not gonna let somebody else have my money, and so it's just lack of just trust. And I think that is not even. It's rooted, like I said, in fear.
Yeah, and people going prenups on $5. You got $5. What you get a prenup for?
Right.
Oh my God!
Prenup on a negative.
Okay. The next thing besides fear is this: it has become a devaluing of marriage.
Yeah.
Even in the church, even in the Christian community, is like because the divorce rate. Well, it depends on the day you're talking. 40% for a first marriage, 59% for a second marriage, third marriage, 73%. So with these high rates, people are like, well, is marriage really
necessary?
Is even Christians taking marriage seriously? That's really kind of like the question of the day. And so it definitely has been a devalue, wondering if, and I think it's kind of like the root of a lot of what we're talking about. Is it even worth it to go through the trouble to, you know, get the ring, go through the whole ceremony,
And you gotta
get
pay.
the paperwork.
You gotta pay to get married.
Absolutely.
And you gotta pay to get divorced.
and sometimes people want these $50,000 extravagant weddings,
Right. Yeah.
you know, and then to whenever somebody feels like it, pretty much is what it boils down to. They can just walk out despite
irreconcilable
the-
differences.
Yeah. Right.
I think it's more so of devaluing of commitment.
Yeah. I think you hit it on the head.
I think it's commitment opposed to marriage per se, because that's really what marriage is that commitment, that loyalty, us building strong families, is that commitment. And people lack commitment. We lack commitment to God. We lack commitment to the commitments that we commit to.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we lack commitment, period.
That's good.
And that's the issue. Because I said this, I would take commitment over a signed document any day.
Yeah.
Any day. Can you give me the commitment and the loyalty that God gives to us? Can you love me like Christ loves the church? If you can check off yes to every single one, we ain't got to sign nothing, boo. Because you didn't already sign. When you are committed to God, then you can be committed to people.
That's so true. That's so true. And then, you know what? That kind of bridges the gap. You're talking about the commitment and you're talking about the fear. And what I know to be true is that the reason why people are, having that level of commitment fears, because I had it myself. Actually, I still have. I learned a couple of weeks ago, I still have a level of fear of commitment. And it's because you deal with the abandonment, you deal with the rejection, and all of these things. You have been exposed to this betrayal, and so you're a little vulnerable, and you have an issue with the trusting. So it's amazing how all that just kind of comes
together.
Come together.
Yeah, and that it goes back to us working on us and recognizing. If I have a problem with commitment, let me start with me. Okay, fine. I saw my parents do it like this. I saw my grandparents do it like this. I saw my aunts, my whoever. But that doesn't have to be me. Let me check in with God to check my relationship and my connection with Him. And really understand, how do I become a whole person in God? How do I become a free person in God? How do I, and I'm on my abundant kick, y'all. How do I have that abundant life that God wants me to really have? And that starts with me connecting with Him and realizing that it's me. It's me. We're down to what, 3 minutes, Brian? 2 minutes? This show went by fast. I want to thank you all so much for joining us here for this great topic. And we brought out some great points and we talked about it, and we just hit it on the head with that. And I just want to leave y'all with this. Please work on you. We don't want to continue to damage people because we're damaged. We want to be able to be whole in Christ, and we want to be able to own who we are, and we want to be able to take responsibility and accountability and just get better each and every single day. That's the purpose to journeying on, to go on this journey of life, to get better each and every single day. Yeah, I had these mess ups. Yeah, I didn't do it right then, but hey, guess what? Every morning there are new mercies. There are new beginnings every single morning. So the next morning is time to get it right. So Jill, tell us, where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Jill Bullock. That's JILLBULLUCK. And also on Facebook, I do Facebook Live, Periscope, and I have Single Central TV Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live.
All right, Latrice, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on Facebook at Latrice Ginwright, last name spelled GINWRIGHT, and on Instagram at Latrice PR_speaks.
And Sayeva, tell us, where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Sayeva Lavelle. That is SIEVALEAVELLE.
And I want you all to come on over to my website, www.lindadlowe.com. Check out all the good stuff I have on there for singles. Make sure you pick up your copy of my book, Dating Smart, 9 Tips to Transform Your Crazy Dating Life. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I was telling Facebook Live just a few minutes ago that next Thursday will be my last show before I go on break. However, I will be posting the replays of the shows on my YouTube channel and some new material. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get that information. I also want you all to submit your topics. What topics do you think I should cover on the Linda D. Lowe Show Girl Talk as it relates to dating and relationships? Whether if it's finances, whether if it's parenting, single parenting, how do you date with kids? Tell me, what do you want me to cover? I'm also looking for ladies and gentlemen to join me on the show for my next go round. So definitely hit me up. Again, my website is www.lindadlowe.com. And I want to thank you all so much. Thank you all, ladies, again for joining us. And to y'all, I will see you all next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You are listening to the Linda D. Lowe Show Girl Talk. Girl Talk, dating, parenting, spirituality. We're talking about all things pertaining to single women. And yes, married women, I got something for you too. No topic is off limits. on The Linda D. Lowe Show.
To support this program and other programs on Bright Radio, visit our donations page at brightradio.org. That's BRITE radio.org. And thank you for listening to Bright Radio.